welcome to another episode of Ethics Express, Conflicts of Interest Explained in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Phil Weitzman, and here joining me today is Carolyn Miller, Enforcement Director for the New York City Conflicts of Interest Board. For today's topic, we'll be discussing the Conflicts of Interest Law restrictions on misuse of position. So, Carolyn, I understand that where generally speaking the Conflicts of Interest Law prohibitions are rather specific, in this case the prohibition is quite broad. Can we talk about that?
The misuse of position prohibition is really at the core of what the Conflicts of Interest Law is about. It's seeking to prevent any overlap, any conflict between a city employee's private interests and their official duties. So it's broad in the sense that it prohibits any official action that a city employee could take, but it's specific in the sense that it prohibits taking that action to benefit only a core group of people, the city employee, him or herself, and their associates, which would be parent, child, sibling, spouse, domestic partner, or anyone with whom you have a business or financial relationship, which might be the person with whom you co-own a restaurant or the tenant to whom you rent out an apartment, a room in your apartment.
Okay, and what would be specific examples of ways that people violate this prohibition?
Well, the most obvious example is the financial benefit that everyone needs, which is a job. So if you are a city employee working and hiring at a city agency and you hire a relative, an associated person to work at that agency, you'd be using your city position to benefit that associate in violation of the Conflicts of Interest Law. Similarly, if you are responsible for contracting for a city agency, let's say you work at parks and you're responsible for hiring the companies that trim the trees in Central Park, and you hire your sister's tree trimming company to trim those trees, then you're providing your sister with a financial benefit in violation of the Conflicts of Interest Law.
All right, and I can see how it would be a problem if the only way to get a contract with the city or work for the city were to have a family member or financial associate already within the city workforce. But this doesn't mean that my associates can never do business with the city, does it?
It doesn't. The requirement on the city employee is the employee can't have any role in any matter involving one of these associated people. So not only could you not hire your brother to work at a city agency, you couldn't have any involvement in the hiring decision for that position, and you also couldn't supervise your brother or evaluate your brother or have any role in determining his sick or annual leave if he actually came to work at the agency. But your brother could work in another unit at your agency, not under your supervision, or in fact, at any other city agency.
All right. Contracts and hiring seem like very obvious examples of where this prohibition could come up. Are there some less obvious examples?
Well, there's city employees who part of their job every day is to review hundreds of applications from members of the public for different kinds of city benefits. You think about an HRA employee who reviews applications for welfare benefits, or a NYCHA employee who decides who gets an apartment in a public housing complex, or a buildings employee who reviews applications for permits for different kinds of construction or modifications. They may have very specific ways of reviewing those applications. However, even under those strict requirements, they still can't review an application submitted by this core group of folks, the people that they're associated with.
I'm having trouble understanding this. If I have very little discretion in how I make a decision in my city job, because there are clear guidelines telling me how to make that decision, then I don't understand why the law cares whether I happen to make that decision in relation to my brother as opposed to somebody else.
Well, there's sort of two reasons for that. The law itself only talks about providing any kind of benefit to a person who's associated with you. It doesn't prohibit providing an improper benefit. So the law is very strict. There shouldn't be any overlap between your private interests and your official duties. And think about how a member of the public looks at an associate getting a benefit as a result of the actions of a city employee. So, for example, let's say you work at a school and you're the person responsible for granting permits for people to use the school building after hours. And suddenly your father's basketball league is the first one in line to use the school gymnasium. Other people might not understand that you reviewed that permit the same as you would any other. That's why this prohibition exists. You shouldn't be involved in granting a permit to your dad.
Yeah, I do see the appearance problem there. Just to be clear now, the law is only concerned with decisions I take relating to associated parties. So the law isn't saying that I can never take an official action with respect to any acquaintance I might have.
That's exactly right. It's the law, because it's so strict, is really limited to this core group of associates. That being said, the Conflicts of Interest Law does permit city agencies to impose stricter restrictions on its employees. So if you're handling a matter that involves someone from your church or your bowling league or your third cousin, you're probably going to want to talk to your supervisor to make sure that your city agency has no issue with you handling that matter.
All right, and I think this is a good place to wrap up. And of course, if anyone has additional questions about this or any other conflicts of interest related topic, they can always reach out to the board's free confidential legal advice line at 212-442-1400 or visit the board's website at www.nyc.gov/ethics. Thank you for joining us, Carolyn.
Thank you, Phil.
This has been another episode of Ethics Express. We'll see you next time.